All right, so just quick introduction. My name is Darrell. I'm the operations lead at Midas Capital. Like I said, Dom is our strategy lead. He normally gives these kind of talks and presentations, but he ran into some kind of travel issues coming back from Lisbon, so I'm just here to take over. Just quick intro to Midas. We are building a platform for customizable and isolated money markets on Moonbeam. We're super excited to be a part of the ecosystem. We're super bullish on Moonbeam and Polkadot as a whole. So super excited to be here and kind of share what we're working on. In terms of kind of what we're going to talk about today, it's going to be focused around isolated lending on Moonbeam and how we utilize kind of like the XCM and the XC20 assets within our money markets. And we believe that this will help to unlock DeFi in the Polkadot ecosystem just because lending is one of the kind of bigger categories within DeFi, and kind of the way that we have it structured, we can actually kind of capture some of the TVL from AMMs as well, which is kind of the leading DeFi category. Okay, cool. So just a quick high-level overview for everyone who's not familiar. XCM is the Polkadot native bridge that allows you to kind of bridge over the native assets from other Polkadot parachains. This is a really cool kind of feature and technology because obviously Polkadot, it's kind of founded on this idea of you have this kind of underlying protocol layer that connects all these different parachains together. So this is kind of like the ultimate form of interoperability. So we're super excited about this kind of technology. And because XCM is this native bridge, it relies on the validator set of the native protocol instead of external validators. So we see that as kind of like a higher level of security, and we see all these issues with bridges with external validator sets. So there's different challenges that we have to overcome here, but with Polkadot, it's kind of designed with interoperability from the get-go. So we are super bullish on kind of the underlying infrastructure and kind of what XCM can kind of create for the ecosystem long term. Okay, cool. So what is an XC20 asset? So as you guys know, a lot of DeFi was kind of originated from Ethereum, so everything is kind of EVM based. So as assets get bridged over onto Moonbeam through the XCM, XC20 is kind of the ERC20 implementation, which is just kind of like the standard token that you see within kind of this EVM ecosystem. So you'll have a lot of these kind of native protocol tokens from the other parachains. They'll get bridged over into the Moonbeam ecosystem and live within Moonbeam as a XC20 asset. As an XC20 asset, this can now participate in the vast DeFi ecosystem within Moonbeam. Okay, cool. So one of the kind of problem statements that we have with kind of just the DeFi ecosystem within Polkadot is number one, Polkadot as an ecosystem, it's kind of comprised of all these different parachains connected through XCM and whatnot. Because these individual parachains, they have their kind of various properties, and it can be develop kind of very unique use cases, which is definitely like a pro. But one of the cons is that this results in some liquidity fragmentation, and some of the kind of opportunities get kind of isolated within each individual parachain. So one of the also challenges too is a lot of the existing DeFi infrastructure is built on EVM, just because a lot of DeFi was kind of started within the Ethereum ecosystem. So we have to kind of come up with a way to tap into the broader Polkadot ecosystem to be able to kind of unite everything and allow the ecosystem to participate in DeFi. So what is the solution? To us, it's what we call the bridgehead chain. So the bridgehead chain is a EVM chain that sits on top of a non-EVM environment and kind of serves as a portal to the broader ecosystem, right? So we think of Moonbeam as the premier bridgehead chain that will serve as a portal for DeFi into the broader Polkadot ecosystem. Okay, so how does Midas kind of come into play here? So like I mentioned earlier, Midas is a platform for customizable and isolated money markets. Because of kind of our generalized structure with the isolated pools, this allows us to bring in a wider range of assets into the pools compared to other lending platforms such as Moonwell, right? So once you have an asset within a specific pool, all the assets in that specific pool are exposed to the risks of all the other assets within the pool, right? So there's a lot of kind of parameters that protocols like Moonwell needs to kind of consider when they add new assets into the pool, just to make sure that the overall protocol stays safe and the overall environment is safe for users. So by creating a platform like Midas, where you can kind of isolate these individual pools, you can actually isolate some of that risk, and you can actually create these lending pools and money markets for a wider range of assets. We've kind of gone beyond just kind of your standard XC20 asset and implemented a ERC 4626 kind of technology, which allows you to use yield-bearing tokens as collateral as well. So this is kind of one of the cool innovations that we have been working on that we're super excited about. We have a kind of a pretty broad range of parameters that you can customize within the Midas pool, from loan to values, the interest rates. So there's a lot of kind of different things that you can adjust, and because it's so customizable, this enables users protocols to create very kind of novel and unique use cases for these money markets, and essentially protocols can build on top of Midas, right? So because we have these kind of customizable solutions, everything is isolated from one another. Your kind of risk profile of each individual pool can kind of be custom tailored to the appetite that the user and the pool owner or designer has. Okay, cool. So Midas pools and XC20 assets. So as we see it today, there's some somewhat limited DeFi use cases for Polkadot native assets so far, right? Like we mentioned earlier, it's amazing that in the Polkadot ecosystem, you can kind of create so many of these different parachains with very unique use cases and parameters. But that also leads to some liquidity fragmentation, right? So how do we kind of aggregate that and create that in a way so that we can have this kind of cohesive DeFi ecosystem? To us, that's all through Moonbeam, right? So if you bridge over these Polkadot native assets through XCM into the Moonbeam ecosystem, you can actually create some custom Midas pools and custom money markets, just kind of based on whatever various use case. This allows you to access the liquidity of your kind of native asset, and you can build some really interesting strategies on top, right? So just a very simple pool structure that we are kind of looking at, right? So a lot of times you can just have these standard xcAssets as collateral within the pool. We can also allow the use of the AMM LP tokens. So you can have like the Curve LP tokens, StellaSwap LP tokens used as collateral. Obviously, you can use all of the blue chip assets like Glimmer, DOT, or whatever stable coins. The LP tokens, we actually utilize the 4626 plugin. So this kind of allows you to maximize capital efficiency, because oftentimes when you are providing liquidity to something like an AMM or something like that, your liquidity is kind of locked there. But by using this as collateral in a money market, this allows you to actually borrow against those assets. So you can actually access that liquidity, but obviously there's going to be a fee that comes along with it. Okay, cool. So really quickly, we just want to highlight the first pool that we have launched within the Moonbeam ecosystem. This is a pool that we are super excited about. This is a pool that we have built in collaborations with the Mixed Bytes and Lido team. This pool actually uses pretty much the full range of functionality within Midas, from just your standard XC20 assets. So even if you kind of look at this kind of snapshot of the pool, you have your standard XC20 assets with like wrap stake dot, XC dot, USDC, Glimmer, and then you also have the 4626 plugin that is used with this XC dot, ST dot, Curve LP pair, right? So what's kind of cool about this is you go to Curve, you will deposit your assets and provide liquidity into Curve, and instead of staking in Curve staking contracts, you just bring it over to Midas, deposit it into our money market, and we have a plugin that will deposit the LP token into the staking contracts on your behalf. So this kind of allows you to earn the yield on your asset on your LP position while accessing the liquidity of this. There are a couple of different classifications of collateral that we use. Risk is something uh, that we value highly within Midas. So how we kind of structure the pools is very critical in how we manage that kind of risk. So this is kind of one of the things that we look at. So certain assets can be protected collateral, which means that they can only be used as collateral and can't be borrowed. And then you also have assets that can be used as collateral and can be borrowed. So we just classify that as borrowable. So those are some of the things that you'll see on our platform. So like I said, this initial pool utilizes kind of like the full spectrum of things that you can customize within the Midas pool. One of the things that you can customize is the interest rate model. So this was kind of a really unique case because with Lido, if you stake your dot with Lido, you get about a 13% yield. I think that was what the rate was kind of when I last checked. That may have changed, but essentially we have structured this pool in a way so that um, you can borrow XC dot at a potentially lower rate and restake that back into the ST dot contracts, which could theoretically allow users to kind of amplify their staking yield. So anyone who is long on dot should theoretically be using these kind of pools just because there's a lot of opportunities to develop some really unique strategies. Here with the custom interest rate model that we've developed here, we kind of targeted the utilization of this pool to be somewhere between 70 to 80%. That's kind of where you see this kink kick in. So at that target utilization level, we set the interest rate to be about 13%, which kind of matches the staking rate of DOT. So up until from 0 to 80%, there should be some nice incentives to be able to borrow that DOT to restake back into the Mixed Bytes and Lido staking contracts. Like I mentioned earlier, ERC 4626, this is kind of like the tokenized vault standard. This is something that we're super excited about in terms of new innovations and features that you can use within money markets. Like I said, this kind of applies to any type of yield bearing asset, whether it's like a beefy vault or some type of AMM LP token. So like I mentioned earlier, you just take your assets, you provide the liquidity in the AMM, take your LP token, stake it here within the Midas pool. The plugin that we have will put that directly into the staking contract, so you continue to earn your AMM LP rewards and your yield there, and then you can borrow against that. So this gives you a way to access the liquidity of capital that you have tied up elsewhere. One of the cool innovations that we have just kind of implemented as well, and this was kind of inspired by Beefy, is we have this safety score for each individual strategy. So there's a bunch of different categories that we look at. And based on all of these different parameters, it will come up with a safety score between 0 and 10. So this is one of the things that can help educate users in terms of what is the risk associated with using certain kinds of strategies and just kind of general DeFi tools, right? I think that's one of the things kind of as a community we need to kind of continue to work on and build is how do we make some of these tools safer and also make some of the risks more transparent for users, So there's going to be a lot of people who maybe they're builders in the space, so they do a lot of research and spend all their time kind of thinking about how these protocols are designed and what are some potential pitfalls. But as we kind of look to bring in that next wave of users and just the general population, we need to create the user interface and user experience in a way that is going to be a lot more kind of seamless for users so they can kind of better understand what are some of the different factors that they need to consider when making their decisions. Okay, cool. So in conclusion, our long-term vision is that Moonbeam will become the liquidity hub for the Polkadot ecosystem. We think this will kind of serve as a portal into Polkadot as a whole and really unlock DeFi. Um, this is obviously going to be done through XCM, and as more assets kind of get bridged over into Moonbeam, this kind of value will help to flow back into the parachains that they came from, and this should help to bootstrap some of their liquidity. Um, because of these kind of um, u- unique use cases that can kind of be developed within Polkadot, we are super excited about just kind of the technology that XCM offers. You know, every parachain is going to be very different and unique. It's going to serve a very unique and special purpose, and everything theoretically can be aggregated through Moonbeam. And we're excited to kind of see some of the different use cases that people can come up with. Okay, cool. So yeah, if you guys want to learn more, you guys can find us at midascapital.xyz. We have Twitter, Discord, Telegram. We're all pretty active there. So yeah, if anyone is interested in kind of setting up a pool, everyone's more than welcome to reach out to us directly. We are here to help kind of guide you and serve as kind of consultants for you guys, just to help advise you guys in structuring pools in a way to minimize risk to your users and our users as a whole. But yeah, that's kind of brings us to the end of our presentation. So